Hello everyone, welcome back to Clariprepp. We all know that the Constitution of India is one of the most detailed constitution in the world. But have you ever wondered where did the makers of our constitution get all these ideas from? Because when we look at the Indian constitution, we find provision related to fundamental rights, parliamentary government, directive principles, federalism, emergency provision, judicial review, fundamental duties, and many other features. So, were all these ideas completely new? No. The Constituent Assembly studied the constitutional system of different countries and also took several provisions from the Government of India Act 1935. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar famously said the Constitution of India had been framed after ransacking all the known constitution of the world. So now this does not mean that India simply copied the constitution of other countries. Rather, the constitution maker studied different constitutional systems, selected provision that suited Indian conditions, and modified them according to India's requirement. And this is exactly what we are going to understand today's lecture. In today's lecture, we are going to understand about the sources of Indian constitutions. Sources of Indian constitution. Today we will cover sources and the provision which are borrowed from these sources. एंड बिकॉज दिस इज अ प्रीलियम्स ओरिएंटेड टॉपिक, मैं आपको सिर्फ सोर्सेज और फीचर नहीं बताऊंगा बल्कि जहां पॉसिबल होगा वहां पार्ट और आर्टिकल नंबर भी बताऊंगा. And at the end, I will also give you some easy tricks to remember these sources. So, without wasting any more time, let's start today's lecture. So, the Constituent Assembly studied constitution of different countries and borrowed heavily from the Government of India Act 1935. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar said that the Constitution of India become after ransacking all the known constitution of the world, but it means it is not a copy, but the provisions were selected and adapted to Indian constitution, Indian conditions. So the first sources of the Indian constitution is the Government of India Act 1935. Government of India Act 1935 is considered the most major sources of administrative and structural provision. From this act, we borrowed or adapted several important features. The first is the federal scheme. The federal part never fully implemented, but structure influence. The federal scheme of the constitution was influenced by Government India Act of 1935. The second thing which is borrowed from the Government of India Act 1935, Office of Governor, and it consists in the part 6th of the Indian Constitution and deals with Article 153 to Article 167. Third is judiciary, like Supreme Court, deals with the part 5th of the Indian Constitution in chapter 4th, and Article 124 to Article 147 deals with it. And High Court, part 6th of the Indian Constitution in chapter 5th and Article 214 to Article 231. Fourth is Public Service Commission, which is also borrowed from the Government of India Act 1935. The idea of Public Service Commission was also taken from it, and and it included in the part 14 of the Indian Constitution in chapter 2nd, and article 315 to article 323 deals with it. And the fifth is emergency provision, which are also taken from the GOI of 1935, and it deals in with the part 18th of the Indian Constitution, and article 352 to article 360 deals with it. And the administrative details also have been adopted from the government of India Act 1935. So the trick is that the federal governor, judiciary, PSC, emergency administration, or you can remember as FGJPEA, FGJPEA. And the Government of India Act 1935, Federal Scheme, Office of Governor, Judiciary, Public Service Commission, Emergency and Administrative Provisions. The second is the British Constitution, which is the another important major source for the Indian Constitution, from which the parliamentary government have been taken, rule of law have been taken, legislative procedures. The parliamentary form of government deals with the Articles 74 to 75. Legislative procedure in the Part 5th of the Indian Constitution, Chapter 2nd, Articles 79 to 122. Single citizenship also have been taken from the British Constitution, deals with Part 2nd and Article 5 to 11. Cabinet system also have been adopted from the British Constitutions. Parliamentary privileges like Article 105 Parliament and Article 194 State Legislature. The bicameralism of the states also adopted from the British Constitution under Article 79 for Union and Article 168 for the state. Prerogative writs under Article 32 for Supreme Court and Article 226 for High Court also adopted from the British Constitution. And the trick for the British Constitution, remember that the parliament and its working, because the most of the provision which are adopted from the British Constitution is the provisions which are related to parliament and its working. The third important source is United States of Constitution, from which the fundamental rights have been adopted, which are enshrined in the Part 3rd of the Indian Constitution from Article 12 to Article 35. Independence of judiciary also adopted from this, and the judicial review also adopted from this, which is under Article 13, Article 32, Article 226 in the form of uh, prerogative writs, and 32 for the Supreme Court and 226 for the High Court. Impeachment of the president also have been adopted under Article 61 from the United States of Constitution, and the removal of judges of Supreme Court under Article 124 clause 4, and for High Court under Article 227 also adopted from the United States of the Constitution. सो यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स से क्या लिया है, यूएसए कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से हमने क्या लिया है, यूएसए कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से हमने लिया है फंडामेंटल राइट्स, जुडिशियल रिव्यू, इंडिपेंडेंट ऑफ जुडिशियल रिव्यू, impeachment of president, and removal of judges of High Court and Supreme Court. One more important thing which we have adopted from the United States Constitution is the office of Vice President under Article 63. It is also a very important borrowing from the US Constitution, and the trick which is remembered, FJIV, which means fundamental rights, judicial review, independence of judiciary, and the office of Vice President, and the removal of judges of High Court and Supreme Court. अब आते हैं हम another important source of the Indian Constitution is Irish Constitution, from which we have adopted DPSP, which are enshrined in the Part 4 of the Indian Constitution under Article 36 to Article 51. Nomination of Rajya Sabha 12 members under Article 18 also adopted from the Irish Constitution. Method of the election of president, it also adopted from the Ireland Constitution, which is Article 54 to Article 55. So Irish Constitution से हमने DPSP, method of elections of president, nomination of Rajya Sabha 12 members, which is enshrined in Article 18, and the method of election of president is under Article 54 and Article 55. ट्रिक टू रिमेंबर DNE. DNE मीन्स D से हो जाएगा हमारा DPSP, N से हो जाएगा हमारा नॉमिनेशन ऑफ राज्यसभा, E से हो जाएगा मेथड ऑफ इलेक्शन ऑफ प्रेसिडेंट अंडर आर्टिकल 54 एंड आर्टिकल 55, नॉमिनेशन ऑफ राज्यसभा अंडर आर्टिकल 18. अब हम आते हैं कैनेडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन पे. तो कैनेडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से क्या लिया है, फेडरेशन विद अ स्ट्रॉन्ग सेंटर. क्या लिया है हमने, फेडरेशन विद अ स्ट्रॉन्ग सेंटर. India is a federation system, but the center is comparatively stronger, and Indian constitution is heavily leaning towards the center. So, federation with a strong center adopted from the Canadian constitution. The residuary power lie with the center under Article 248 plus Union list in the 7th schedule, also adopted from the Canadian constitutions. In India, the residuary legislative power are vested in Parliament, not in the state legislature, which is provided by Article 248 plus Union list, which is in the 7th schedule, also adopted from the Canadian constitution. The third is the governor appointed by the center. The provision that the government of the state is appointed by the center under Article 155. It means that the governor of state is appointed by the president, adopted from the Canadian constitution, and the advisory jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, also adopted from the Canadian constitution under Article 143. So advisory jurisdiction of Supreme Court also adopted from the Canadian constitution under Article 143. तो स्ट्रॉन्ग राग, इसकी हो जाएगी ट्रिक। स्ट्रॉन्ग से याद रखना स्ट्रॉन्ग सेंटर, आर से रेसिडरी लिस्ट और रेसिडरी पावर, ए से याद रखना अपॉइंटमेंट ऑफ द गवर्नर बाई सेंटर, जी से एजी से याद रखना अपॉइंटमेंट ऑफ गवर्नर एंड एडवाइजरी जुरिडिक्शंस। तो कैनेडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से फेडरेशन विद स्ट्रॉन्ग सेंटर, रेसिडरी पावर विद द सेंटर, गवर्नर अपॉइंटेड बाय सेंटर एंड एडवाइजरी जुरिडिक्शन ऑफ सुप्रीम कोर्ट। सिक्स्थ सोर्स इज ऑस्ट्रेलियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन। व्हाट इज ऑस्ट्रेलियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन? ऑस्ट्रेलियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से क्या लिया गया है? कंकरेंट लिस्ट लिया गया है, लिस्ट विच इज थर्ड इन द 7th शेड्यूल। तो क्या लिया गया है ऑस्ट्रेलियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से? concurrent list. The idea of concurrent list was influenced by Australia. In India, the concurrent list is list third of the 7th schedule. Next is freedom of trade, commerce and intercourse, also adopted from the Australian constitution, which are enshrined in the part 13 of the Indian constitution from article 301 to 307. And another important and the most important feature of the parliamentary form of government, which is the joint sitting of the parliament or joint sitting of the two houses of the parliament, are adopted from the Australian constitution, which are enshrined in the article 108. तो ऑस्ट्रेलिया से क्या लिया है? CTJ, concurrent list, freedom of trade, commerce and intercourse, J से हो जाएगा joint sitting of the two house. Next is जर्मन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन। जर्मन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन और वीमर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से हमने लिया है सस्पेंशन ऑफ फंडामेंटल राइट्स ड्यूरिंग इमरजेंसी अंडर आर्टिकल 358 टू 359। तो जर्मनी से हमने क्या लिया गया है? इमरजेंसी के टाइम फंडामेंटल राइट्स को सस्पेंड करना का प्रोविजन जर्मनी से लिया है अंडर आर्टिकल 358 टू 359। देन हमने सोवियत कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से क्या लिया है? सोवियत कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से हमने लिया है फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज which are enshrined in the part 4th A of the Indian Constitution under Article 51A. It is inserted by 42nd Amendment Act of 1976. तो सोवियत कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन और यूएसएसआर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से हमने लिया है फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज बिकॉज दिस इज द सोशलिस्ट प्रिंसिपल. So basically it is amended in the USSR constitution. So the Indian constitution maker also borrowed this concept from there, and which was later inserted by 42nd Constitution Amendment Act of 1976. And the idea of justice in the field of social, economic and political, which are enshrined in the preamble of the constitution, also taken from the Russian Revolution of 1917, or we can say that the Soviet constitution. तो इसकी ट्रिक क्या हो जाएगी? ड्यूटीज प्लस जस्टिस. अब हम आते हैं अनदर इंपोर्टेंस विच इज फ्रेंच कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. क्या है? फ्रेंच कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. फ्रेंच कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से क्या लिया गया है? लिबर्टी, इक्वलिटी एंड फ्रेटर्निटी के प्रिंसिपल्स. दीज प्रिंसिपल आर इंश्राइंड इन द प्रीएम्बल और द प्रीफेस और इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. एक और हमने लिया है वो है रिपब्लिक. जो हमारी स्टेट का नेचर है रिपब्लिकन नेचर, वो हमने कहां से लिया है? फ्रेंच कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से। इसकी ट्रिक है एल ई एफ प्लस रिपब्लिक, एल्स लिबर्टी, ई से इक्वलिटी, एफ से फ्रेटर्निटी प्लस रिपब्लिक। वेन एवर यू हियर फ्रेंच थिंक प्रियम्बल, जस्ट क्योंकि प्रियम्बल में लिबर्टी भी है, इक्वलिटी भी है, फ्रेटर्निटी भी है, एज अ ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एंड एज अ नेचर ऑफ स्टेट रिपब्लिक भी मेंशन है। अब हम बात करते हैं साउथ अफ्रीकन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की कि साउथ अफ्रीकन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से क्या लिया गया है। तो मोस्ट इंपोर्टेंट आर्टिकल और पार्ट 20 विच इज द अमेंडमेंट प्रोसीजर अंडर आर्टिकल 368 enshrined in the part 20 of the Indian Constitution adopted from the South African Constitution, and the election of Rajya Sabha member which is by proportional representation by single transferable vote system under article 80 also adapted from the South African Constitution. So trick for South Africa, amendment plus Rajya Sabha election, amendment procedure from South African Constitution. नेक्स्ट इज जैपनीज कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन। जैपनीज कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से हमने लिया है प्रोसीजर स्टेबलाइज्ड बाय लॉ which is enshrined in the article 21 which said that no person shall be deprived of life or personal liberty except according to procedure stabilized by law। तो हमने जैपनीज कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से क्या लिया गया है? आर्टिकल 21 में जो प्रोसीजर स्टेबलाइज्ड बाय लॉ मेंशन है वो। अब यहाँ पर एक कॉमन प्रीलिम्स ट्रैप ये है कि स्टूडेंट ऑफन कंफ्यूज विद द ड्यू प्रोसेस ऑफ लॉ। इट इज अ यूएस कॉन्सेप्ट, it is a US concept, not Japanese concept. So India follows procedure established by law which is borrowed from Japan, not due process of law which is the US concept. So अब हम फटाफट से रिवीजन करते हैं। तो वन लाइन प्रीलिम्स रिवीजन के लिए 1935 अगर आपसे पूछा जाए तो उसमें आपको एक चीज याद रखनी है, ज्यादातर एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव फ्रेमवर्क लिए गए हैं वहां से। ब्रिटेन से ज्यादातर क्या लिए गए? पार्लियामेंट्री सिस्टम। तो ये एक तरीके से ट्रिक है, अगर आप कंफ्यूज हो रहे हो ऑप्शंस में तो आपको ये देखना है कि पार्लियामेंट्री वर्किंग में कौन सा प्रोविजन है। तो वो कहां से लिया गया है? ब्रिटेन से। यूएसए और आयरलैंड से बेसिकली फिलोसफिकल पार्ट लिया गया है। तो फिलोसफिकल पार्ट और मेन पार्ट क्या है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के, जिनको नोवल फीचर्स बताया गया है, वो है हमारे फंडामेंटल राइट्स and judicially most of the provisions related to the judiciary also adopted from the US constitution। एंड आयरलैंड से डीपीएसपी से याद रखनी है मेनली, कनाडा से स्ट्रॉन्ग सेंटर, ऑस्ट्रेलिया से हमने कंकरेंट लिस्ट को लिया है, जर्मनी से इमरजेंसी प्रोविजंस को लिया है, सोवियत यूनियन से फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज को लिया है प्लस जस्टिस को लिया है। फ्रांस तो हमें सिंपल याद रखना है प्रीएम्बल को। प्रीएम्बल में जो इंपोर्टेंट ऑब्जेक्ट है लिबर्टी, इक्वलिटी, फ्रेटर्निटी, फ्रांस से। रिपब्लिक को हमें याद रखना है कि रिपब्लिक जो नेचर है स्टेट का वो भी कहां से लिया गया है? फ्रांस से। साउथ अफ्रीका से हमें इंपोर्टेंट चीज याद रखनी है। इंपोर्टेंट क्या है? सबसे इंपोर्टेंट क्या है? अमेंडमेंट प्रोसीजर। कहां से लिया गया है? साउथ अफ्रीका से। एंड हमें एक और चीज याद रखनी है, वो है इलेक्शन ऑफ राज्यसभा, वो भी कहां से लिए गए हैं? साउथ अफ्रीका से। और जापान से स्टार्ट रखनी है प्रोसीजर स्टेबलाइज्ड बाय लॉ, नॉट ड्यू प्रोसेस ऑफ लॉ, बिकॉज ड्यू प्रोसेस ऑफ लॉ इज एन अमेरिकन कॉन्सेप्ट, नॉट अ जापानीज। सो हमने जापान से क्या लिया? प्रोसीजर स्टेबलाइज्ड बाय लॉ, नॉट ड्यू प्रोसेस ऑफ लॉ। So it is all about the sources of the Indian Constitution and the provisions which are borrowed from the different sources. So guys, today we understood one of the most important factual topics of Indian polity. But remember one thing, the Indian Constitution is not a mere copy of foreign constitution. The constitution makers studied different constitutional system, selected suitable ideas and adapted them according to Indian constitution conditions and requirement. That is why our constitution has a unique character of its own, and it is also a salient feature of the Indian constitution. So for prelims, however, you should remember these source feature combination, because questions are often directly or indirectly framed around them. So revise these combination again and again. I hope you got the concept clearly. I will see you in the next lecture with another important topic for your competitive examination. Till then, keep learning, keep revising, keep building your concept with Clary Prep, where concepts meet with the clarity. Thank you very much.